Getting back to this matter of statutory rescission, another place where that kind of comes into play, Randy, is in these estate sales sometimes. They will be subject to a statutory rescission. And if you are going to write something for that, either as a selling agent or a purchasing agent, you need to make clear whose responsibility that is to get that, and then be
Yeah.
prepared to make sure that that happens. And then, of course,
Yeah.
in that case, it isn't so much a matter of earnest money or anything, but it is a matter of clarity of title, being able to actually sell the property.
Right.
Oh. I like what they did on the alternatives disclosure, actually.
Oh, I'd have to pull that up and look at it. I kind of got two things cooking here.
I know.
We can look at those forms a little bit if anybody has it in front of them, the highlighted areas. But
The only thing
just want
that's
to make sure
interesting,
everybody on the call is interested.
I mean, it's a big deal for the compensation disclosure, guys. You need to make sure you're putting that in front of your buyers somewhere in writing what you're being paid.
Oh yeah.
That wasn't in there before.
Right. So anytime it changes, you need to update your client.
Dang, good point, Randy. Well, it does mention you can say how it's calculated. But yeah, then you're right. So maybe by so explaining to them where it shows on the MLS sheet, maybe, and then sending, I don't know.
Yeah, or
Trying
just
to make it
updating
so we
the
don't
disclosure.
forget. That doesn't sound fun.
I think that's another important thing too, is that sometimes people want you to make sure that the compensation is paid in without putting in the any kind of limits. So, for instance, any kind of seller's agreement for closing costs. Some of them read that they will be taken off the top, and the commission will be paid on the remainder, not on the total, if there are closing costs involved.
Yeah, that's got to be definitely in writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to just kind of keep your mind clear on making sure. Basically, it is, have I checked every box? Have I gone over it and looked at it and thought about what it means? And sometimes that's really easy to skip over in the heat of the moment. You know, we get excited about taking the listing and making sure that the client signs, but we don't necessarily take heed to every little nuance. And I know sometimes people think it's overkill, but we really do need to do it.
Yeah.
We should have like a spell check for forms for contracts, where the spell check goes through and makes sure all the blanks are filled in. I don't think we have anything like that yet, but it'd be cool to come up with that, wouldn't it?
I call
Yeah,
it
it'd be almost impossible though, because every contract has different blanks, you know?
Right, but look at how sophisticated some of the software is.
Yeah.
You know?
You'd have to pick, I mean, you could do that with templates pretty easily, but you'd have to have a template for 15 different transactions. You know,
Yeah, that would be
EA, FHA.
Are you thinking, Lynn, are you thinking of something kind of like where if you're filling out a form online, it'll alert you if there's something left blank?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
they
like,
do have that built into a lot of those kinds of responding type of things, but I don't know how we would do that as Neal says, that the numbers of different things and the numbers of blanks being so variable.
but with artificial intelligence, you know, if you check no, then you don't answer the next three. If you check
So
yes, you
that's
answer all of them.
right.
That
That's true.
would be very easy for, it's probably, like you said, there probably is something out there. We just don't know what it is, but it would be really cool. And it might save lots of frivolous and non-frivolous litigation if we did have something like that, that Anne could use, where she just pushes the button, wham, it goes through everything and she learns how to do it really great, and then she passes it down to us so that she doesn't have to mess her hair up every day working on that. And it would be a cool thing for all agents, and especially for the broker who has the ultimate liability in anything the underlings do.
Yeah, kind of
Well,
a
that's
backup. I
true.
feel like we still better go through it line
Backup,
by line, though.
exactly. Just in
Right.
case something's checked or filled out wrong, too.
Well, that's inevitable. I mean, you know, you either say yes or no, there's no maybe. And if you check yes, it's assumed that you mean yes, even though you might have meant no. But at least it would prevent things like a blank spot. That one little blank spot can really ruin your whole day. Huh, Randy?
Yeah, it's taking hours.
Well, if anybody has any more ideas on that or comes across something that would be a compatible software that we could roll into, it probably wouldn't be very expensive either. It's sort of like an addition onto the Grammatique or spelling thing.
You
It's
could
and it
probably
now.
suggest it to Ascentify or
Mm-hmm.
to the forms committee.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
A
Dr.
census sign
Lizzie,
would
don't you
be,
have
that's
experience in
true,
that
the person,
arena?
yep, the people that keep up the forms, that would be the ones. It would have to be built in at that point.
Great. But would you like to spearhead calling them since you were on the committee before and you probably still know some of the people?
I was never on a census sign committee, but I worked with people at the realtor's office at
Well, that's what
Bar.
I'm saying. This would be, like Randy says, this is really a great
Well,
opportunity for the board
I'll
to
tell you
step up.
what, they do hear from me fairly often. I'd be glad to send them an email. I promise to do it.
Well, isn't that part of government affairs?
I think it is ultimately, yes.
MNrealtor.com, you can make form suggestions
You can,
electronically.
right. So if we really
Okay.
wanted to do that, we could ask if there could be some kind of a checker that would make sure that the forms that were filled in. That would be an easy way to ask. Okay, I'll do it. I'll send them an email. Okay,
All right, push the button.
I will. Well, did you have any other good anecdotes or interesting bits to add for us, Randy?
Fill out your paperwork.
Yeah, and as important, send it to the office.
Well, yeah, turn it in after it's signed because it gives us time to check it.
Aren't we supposed to
Okay.
have some kind of a fine if you don't turn it in within 3 days or something?
Well, I say in our contract, I put a fine if I don't get paperwork till after I see a paycheck. But, you know, usually I give somebody a warning or two and then, you know, $50 or something usually fixes the problem pretty quick. But it's kind of pretty hard for me to say I'm supervising everything when I see the paycheck and no contract yet, you know. So that's kind of the only problem. If the Department of Commerce just walks in, asks for 3 files and I don't have them, I look pretty stupid. So it's happened before.
We have to
Kind of
keep that to a
embarrassing.
minimum. Yeah, not only embarrassing, we got to keep that to a minimum.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it's funny if you hold that check, how fast that paperwork can get in.
Yeah. Yeah, I found out Francis got a little loose on trying to get people paid up so fast because he wanted to help people get their money. But I'm like, the only thing we have hanging out there to get the paperwork is the check. So it helps clear up missing documents pretty quick.
That's good. That part of the dot the I, cross the T is no fun, but it's very important as part of the big fiduciary responsibility of the agent.
Yeah.
Well, I think probably if we could just simply realize that if you do it meticulously to begin with and send it through quickly, then anything that wasn't right will be found right at the beginning. And then we, of course, have ample time to correct it. So we really need to just make that a pledge that we'll get it. When we get paperwork that needs to go to the office, it goes right then.
Exactly.
And
So
actually, everything is so relatively easy to send. It's unfortunate that we don't do a better job.
Yeah, I mean, if nobody doesn't know how to use NRG admin, which we want you to use, you know, you can always just email it to Francis and he'll forward it on to whoever needs to look at it. Now do that so that everybody just has to remember one email address, admin@nrgadmin.com, and then he just forwards it off to whoever he has helping. I think he's got about 4 people working for him now, so he's definitely got the help.
that's great.
He should be able to.
Is there any
Neal,
update
you've
on?
got a pensive look on your face. What's going on with you?
Is there any update on the COVID showing properties?
Nope, nothing from the Board of Realtors yet. So, I mean, we'll forward something out as soon as we see it to make sure everybody has it. I think if I go on their website, they're probably tells me right now where they stand, but they're just saying use your best judgment and be respectful of those who want to wear a mask.
Yeah, the numbers are pretty scary with the increase in cases right now. Just in the last few days.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're on Zoom.
I decided to get a shot a couple months ago, so a lot of people are against it, but I just decided to go do it. You know, I heard that a lot of people that had COVID wind up with scar tissue in their lungs and stuff, but I still like to play hockey. I don't need. It's hard enough.
Yeah, it is hard to know. I decided at my point in time, at my age, that no matter what happened, one way or the other, it would be a toss of a coin. So, and with the social pressure, I decided just do it. So I did. But you're a little younger, and I don't know. There are a lot of people that have had, especially men with the Johnson one. They had some terrible thing in a study in that 50 age group that came out later.
I'm not seeing anything on the Board of
MLS.
Realtors website about COVID updates right now.
Yeah,
Oh, they're all dead.
I'm sure.
Well, that's
Oh,
good.
here we go. COVID updates. Right on top, there's a link. Yeah, if anybody wants to see the recent update on mnrealtor.com, there's a link right on the top that says COVID-19 updates and resources. Click here.
Okay.
So,
I think in a lot of the new listings, they're still using the same verbiage. It says something about respect for people, and if a mask is asked for, to comply, that kind of thing. And
yep.
I think that's about what we should do. That's respectful to both sides. And I have noticed more people wearing them. One of my clients was at the Como Zoo, and they require masking indoors and out at the zoo because people tend to crowd to the rails, and they wanted them to at least have that much protection. So that's probably a good idea too.
Aside from the healthcare safety concerns, there's updates on here. Looks August 3rd and August 4th regarding the eviction moratorium and the rental assistance resources. So if anybody has clients that are renting, there's information there.
Yeah, that got extended, of course. That's got extended. What have you guys been running into in the last week that we can mastermind about? Raylan, did anyone send any questions or anything? Lisa, you got something?
I never saw anything.
Tiff?
Oh, I think,
Alicia, she's got to unmute her little microphone.
No, I know.
yeah.
I think that was just background noise. Let's see. All right, so we can go over a couple things if you guys would want. Let's see.
Randy, something I would like clarified is this thing about don't call people. Because I have talked with some realtors who are calling people. They're doing what I guess I would think of as cold call kind of farming. And I thought that that was really ruled out. And
Yeah.
one person who cold called me said that she had every right to cold call anybody she wanted. And I don't know if I could agree with that. I think it might be taking a bit of a risk.
Well, was it listed? Or did they call an existing listing?
No, this was calling people, cold calling for people to hope to find buyers or sellers.
Calling for people to help.
Kind of like the olden days when we searched for leads in that way.
Yeah,
Well, they
that's
got to
not-
respect the do not call list.
Yeah, that's it. So if they're calling your cell phone and stuff, I mean, it is what it is. What are you gonna do about it? Nothing you can do about it.
Okay, but I guess my question was a realtor called me and my feeling was that I said I didn't appreciate that and I thought that she should check on the rule, and she said that she had cleared it with her broker and it was perfectly legitimate.
Mm.
Well, yeah,
It's
they're just
public
calling looking for
information.
business. So unless they're on the do not call list, then
Yeah.
I guess they can cold call.
There are companies all across the country cold calling expireds for sale by owners. I mean, circle prospecting. Like New York, you probably can't do it. Probably California, I don't know, but here
Right.
we can for sure. I haven't heard otherwise. And it's like the trespassing thing. Like if you keep calling, then that's the problem. If you call once, like
You mean once you're informed that they don't welcome your call?
yeah.
Okay.
And the reality is the consumer being able to do anything about it is zero. I mean, so not that that's a reason to do something, but I don't.
But it
think
was my
that-
understanding that if we did it as licensed agents, that we would be in trouble with the Department of Commerce.
I don't
I don't know.
understand
Do you
that.
have that? Do you have that? Did you find that somewhere?
I haven't looked for it for a while, but I certainly probably could check it out. And I will check it out because I have been curious about it.
If you call somebody that's on the do not call list, I mean, you can get, make a mistake once, but you keep calling them person, you could get a serious fine.
Okay.
So if you were on the do not call list, then you could tell that person and they should be removing you from the list. It's just hard for people to keep updated, accurate.
Right. That's what
Information.
we always used to do when calling in the past. But
Yep,
once
they're
the
supposed to
rule
be doing
was
it.
made,
People don't because it costs money and time.
Yep.
Most of the people that I've talked to recently have been, some of them not even aware that it is that serious a thing. So I don't know. I guess I have a mixed feeling about it. I think it's unfortunate that we have to ask the question whether or not it is legal or illegal. I just might call the Commerce Department and ask them what their feeling is about it.
Yeah, you can. I'm pretty sure they'll refer you to the federal code or
Right.
statute.
Randy,
Right.
don't we have the Minnesota Association of Realtors has a legal hotline? Just call them.
Well, yeah, but they're going to tell me the same thing I just told you. You have to respect the do not
Yes,
call
they
list.
will. Yes,
Oh,
I think that's
But then
what they
she'll
would
know.
say.
So we're in, we don't know. So you might as well get into, I know for sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Or
basically
downtime.
anybody can call people and solicit business until the person they're calling is added to the do not call list.
Okay, and that's the way it used to work. If I wanted to do cold calling and I could get the number, I would just do it. And then if they said they wanted not to be called again, even if they weren't on the do not call list, I actually collected those and sent them in because I said I would do it.
That's
But
what you're
I don't
supposed to
know.
do.
Yeah, but I don't know if that is still, considered appropriate. So,
Yeah, it still exists. It's just that over the years, the like the federal, whoever's in charge of that thing, loosened up on it. I mean,
I think they
remember when
did.
you
They
used to be
must
able to
have.
say, yeah, you can get on the national registry, but I mean, if you're on there, then when people scrub their list, it will not be on the list because typically you're not supposed to use a list that isn't scrubbed against the
Right,
do not
that's
call
true.
registry.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Now,
just a
and
lot
what
of people
about,
don't pay to do it. They just ride
and
the kind of the rodeo.
yes, and of course, the other thing is cell phones. Most people today don't have landlines, but I thought that you weren't supposed to be able to call cell phones, but the only phones I have are cell phones and people do call me. And so I'm not sure how that works.
You can register a cell phone number on the do not call list also.
Yes, you can.
FCC.gov.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and we should tell people that if they object then.
Well, yeah, I'll say, sorry, if I didn't put my number on the do not call list, I will now, but please take me off your list.
Right, exactly.
Isn't it if you inform them not to call you again and they call you back, that 3 times I think it's considered harassment, and one of my friends got $14,000 as a harassment fee for a penalty.
Okay, yep. So somebody followed up with them. A
Yeah.
lot of times people just drop the ball and just don't follow up. Everybody gets mad when they get a call and then they just, let it go away.
That's probably the majority, but we certainly wouldn't want to be in the minority on that one.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
it takes time to
sometimes
file a complaint, so people just don't.
sometimes I get kind of lonesome if the car insurance people don't call me every day. I wonder if they went on vacation or not.
Mhm.
Right?
I
Yes,
don't know.
and the window sellers too.
Oh, I like it when they call because I try to keep them on the line as long as possible and tell them, we're not going to be doing anything. You keep calling us, but you probably should call somebody if you want to try to make a commission today. But I really like talking to you. Click. And they don't call back then until a new person comes on board. Oh, call Lynn. She can be a good first customer. They do that on purpose.
That's
But
awesome.
it is disgusting that people try to make solicitation calls by telephone today. That's not cool.
Well, it's an interesting thing.
Something. I wanted to go through, I know it's not Tuesday, it's Wednesday, but we're gonna do Taco Wednesday. So I found this cool flyer, I guess, if you will, through Club Wealth, talking about creating a mutual agreement, and they call it the taco. So I'm going to share my screen here. So this is super important for listings, guys. When you're talking with the prospective client for listings, and it can also be for buyers as well. Just creating a mutual agreement. And why that's important is because you're setting expectations for what's going to take place. Okay. So obviously you want for T for taco is time. You must address the time of the meeting up front and get mutual agreement from the prospect before moving forward. So usually what I'll do is say, hey, we'll be sitting down for 15 minutes, so make sure that, you have that blocked off, right? And of course, if they're like, I have 5 minutes, but you need longer, don't set the meeting. Okay, so if you have a couple days to choose from when doing a listing presentation and they have 30 minutes before dinner, that might not be enough time, right? So don't because then that just adds stress to the entire situation. You're rushing through things / they're not paying attention because they're thinking about what they're going to make for dinner or whatever. And then set the agenda. So it's the prospect's agenda. It's not your agenda. Okay. The prospect's agenda always comes first. So we need to, if you are being selfish in regards to your agenda, quit being selfish and telling the prospect what you are going to do. The question should be, what are the things that you will want me to address while we are together? You can see that right here. So that we can make the best use of our time together. And what's super neat about that is all the objections will start spilling out if they have them. Okay. Questions. Obviously, this is the opportunity to prepare your prospect for the fact that you'll be asking a lot of questions during the meeting. So if it's a buyer presentation, finding out why they're moving, so you can get their why down and what exactly they're looking for when purchasing a property, right? Among a bunch of other things. And then you also may let them know that other things you will need to accomplish. And obviously the prospect's agenda always comes first. So Q for questions. They kind of misspelled taco, but you get it. And then the most important ingredient, and when you're doing anything, is the outcome. So, the way that I think about it is you kind of have steps to a transaction. So the first one is always the appointment. Just set the appointment, right? You just want to meet them face to face. So the most important ingredient of your taco is the outcome. You must let the prospect know that at the end of the meeting, you will be asking them for a decision. So this is obviously important for listings, right? Though you may not know that the decision looks like yet, there will be a point that you'll be asking them to make a decision to move forward with you or to part ways. Either answer yes or no is okay. You must get them to agree that a decision will be made. So basically you're setting the expectation that you're going to be asking for their business at the end of your presentation or during, depending on, your vibe, which is super important because you see a lot of people, or I've had a lot of listing presentations where they are asking, or, hey, we'll get back to you. We got a couple more interviews, right? So just setting the expectation that, hey, I'm going to be asking for that business up front is very helpful when you're going to ask them to sign on the dotted line, right? And then you get into the neuro-linguistic programming we went into before, and then overcoming objections that they might have, and then kind of setting the path with, hey, do you have any more questions before we start the paperwork? And then they'll start spilling questions or objections. And then at that point, you want to go back to that, if I've covered everything, are you ready to start the paperwork? And then it's yes or no, right? But we need to be asking for that business. Super important.
Neal, one thing we might want to do is some kind of a little conversation on how to actually ask those questions in the sense of kind of that getting to yes sort of thing.
Yep.
And we could also do something on how do you close somebody in various ways, and how can you read those closing signals in the sense of how do you know when they are really ready to make a move in terms of actually signing a listing or a buying agreement or whatever it is. I think that there are certain things that we could look for, and certainly the body language ones are really good. And there are some others as well. So we might want to do a little program or process on that one of these days.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That's obviously super important. That comes to future pacing, the NLP that we've talked about, asking the right questions, never saying what, like asking the right questions determines what you need to pinpoint your talks to. Like if they say, hey, you know, I'm trying to move my family to Florida, then you want to bring up, you know, hey, to make sure we get your family to Florida the fastest way possible, this is what we should do, X, Y, and Z, right? And you always want to be a team. You're in this together. Like that was, I mean, that's huge, right? We're going to do this. When we do this, how is it going to feel? You know, how does the perfect, when we work together, how does selling your home feel? You know, how do you imagine this being amazing? And getting them into an imaginative state of working with you, number one, because you planted that in there, and then secondly, what it feels like to them to have sold their home and to be moving, you know, wherever they're going to be moving. They'll tell you, and then it gets them in that state of bliss, if you will. And you know, people remember people not because of what you say, it's because of how you make them feel.
Exactly.
That
So can
also
be,
brings up another piece of that has to do with reading the person right from the beginning and figuring out, is this a person who is a certain type of person that needs tons of data, or is this a person who's going to make the decision more on the basis of the feeling or the emotion? Or is this the person that needs to feel a bond and alliance with you so that your personalities, they think, mesh in order for you to behave in a way that's going to make them get what they believe is right. And a lot of times, just a few little signals like that and understanding what those might be can make a big difference in doing the whole process more swiftly and more effectively.
yeah. So one of the biggest things that we do as coaches is talk about the disc profile. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. Anthony Robbins is super big into it. And you nailed it on the head, because you don't want to come to someone like me with a bunch of data. Like when I get a sales call and they won't tell me how much their freaking service costs, like immediately before I even want to listen to it, I'm done. Like I don't even want to, that's not part of my deal, you know? So the D stands for dominant. So like they're more decisive. You're going to see entrepreneurs. I mean, most of us have to have some sort of driver personality to be doing what we do, because you have to be able to wake yourself up. You don't have your own out. You know, you make your own hours. It makes a big difference, right? We assume the responsibility, takes charge. We want to solve. I mean, for me, like if there's an issue, I want to make it go away. So that can come, that can be bad as well if you have other tasks to do, but a fire happens with one of your transactions, you want to try and fix it immediately. It can be super not as helpful as you would want that to be. High Ds can be very demanding depending on how high of a D you are. And obviously if you're low D on the disc profile, it can be very, you're unobtrusive. You just kind of go with the flow. So when you're talking to a D, and you'll have to realize husband and wife, partners, right? Who's taking the lead, no matter what that looks like in a partnership. When you're talking to people, who's taking the lead, right? And who do you need to cater more towards on the disc profile to get the listing, right? Because usually one of them has the final say, if you will, right? And it can be either or.
And it isn't always the one who talks the most either. Sometimes the one who's really going to have the bottom line on the decision is the one who said the least. So you have to really be able to see what their dynamic is and what their subtle cues are between the two of them.
For sure. How they're sitting, eye contact, crossing of the arms, like we talked, like we watched that video that one week. Is super important, right?
Definitely so. A lot of very small clues can be ultimately quite significant.
Yeah.
And I know, I remember one time doing a listing presentation and this woman had said absolutely nothing. But when it came time to decide whether they were going to do the signing of the listing agreement, she was the one that went to her purse. And I knew that she was the one who was going to hand him a pen, even though I had a pen on the table.
Interesting.
And so, it's just kind of it's amusing in a way.
It is.
But it also is very telling.
I like it. So then with I for on the disc profile, they are definitely more, that's the influencer's personality. So they're persuasive, inspiring, enthusiastic. So a lot of realtors are high D, high I's. And Randy, as the broker, that a ton of realtors are not these high C's, which are detail oriented and organized, right? You see that with the freaking problems with documents and all that stuff, I'm sure. So yeah, with the I mean, you can see the list here. Accepts or enjoys change, very outgoing. So it's super important when, running an organization, what disc profile an employee is, / when working with, I don't know, anybody. If they're a high I, they want recognition, typically, and not just in front of themselves. Very outgoing, extremely friendly. So low I might be, not very outgoing, more of an introvert. And then you have the S quadrant, which is stabilizing. So they're stable, right? They do not enjoy change. It's not their favorite thing, but they're a follower more. They're more of a follower. So less decisive, more of a team player. They're very patient and very predictable. Okay. They're very amiable. And they're complacent. So they're usually, like it says, the stable one in the group. So like when you're talking with someone on a listing or buy side, the ones that are just undecisive, because they're probably super afraid of change, right? So that's something that you're going to have to key in on. And then C for cautious, right? So these are the ones that are organized, detail-oriented, systematic, and very analytical. These are the ones, as you mentioned before, they're going to want the data, right? They're more of the perfectionist, systematic, careful, and orderly. So it's super important to know who you're talking to, because like I said, that, if you try to be a high D to a C, you're just going too fast, right? It's almost like different states have different ways of speaking to each other. So it's another neuro-linguistic programming is copy their tone and their rate of speech. If you're talking too fast to a C, they're just gonna think you're just trying to sell them, blah, 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 right? So it's super important to know who you're talking to get the objective, right? So C's and S's, they're very reserved. IS's are more people-oriented. The DIs, so the dominance and influencing are more outgoing. And then if you're like a high D and a high C, you're very task-oriented. So super, super important stuff when going to talk with people, for sure. I don't know that this link still works without costing money, but you guys might be able to take that. It's very interesting to take it yourself. The thing you want to remember is take it as if you're working, right? So put your realtor hat on, take it as if you're working, not as if you're with family. You know, how do you act with family? If you want to know kind of what personality you are as an entrepreneur, you might surprise yourself.
I do have some of those kinds of things that are very similar and almost the same as that if anybody was interested in it, I could send them free. So
yeah, just send it to
anybody
Ray
that
Lynn.
wants that, just give me a call.
Awesome. Yeah, and I don't know if this one's free. I can try and get I know Clubhouse has one.
I think I have one. If it isn't exactly formatted like this, I have almost the same thing because I do have a certificate from the Tony Robbins Institute, and I think I have all of that. But I have another one that works just like that I know I could easily send to people. So if you want to call me or contact me or text me or whatever, I will.
Okay.
It is interesting. And you know, it's interesting today because some of these traits are used a little bit differently by millennials. And I think that we need to know that because trust issues and millennials, if you've had an opportunity to do that a bit, I'm sure you'll see that. And so it's always an ongoing thing to keep ourselves off without having any idea how we did it.
Absolutely.
So business self and how do I present in an authentic way?
Exactly. Awesome. I am good if you guys are good. I'll try and get I got to run to an appointment here in the next couple of minutes. I'll try and send over the taco PDF and then this disc. I don't know if I can download this, but I'll send you some resources.
Sounds really good, Randy.
Thanks, Neal. That was
good,
fun.
guys.
That was fun. Now I'm
There
hungry.
you go. That's awesome. Taco Wednesday.
Randy, I'll try to stay out of trouble for a week.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll see
I'm
you
going to call
guys.
the board now. Tell them you
All
won't.
right.
Take care, everybody. Have a
Okay.
wonderful week.
Bye.
We'll see ya.
Go get them, Tigers.